Before I introduce him, I do need to mention a couple quick things. Tony Perkins is going to be on the Megyn Kelly Show tonight, actually in about 10 minutes, live from this ballroom. Now you behave yourselves, okay? No shout-outs to mom at home, anything like that. But anyway, that's coming up. Also, we have a winner of the, let's see, this is our tweet of the day. And I don't know if you're here, but I'm going to call out Tamara Cooper. Tamara Cooper, are you here? Just shout it out if you are. Tamara. Someone pretend to be Tamara. Thank Tamara. There you are. Anybody know Tamara? Can anyone verify she was actually at this conference? Well, she tweeted out, what's that? What? Oh, stop it. I'm tired and crabby, and I'm not going to put up with it. Okay. But she tweeted out earlier today, in 59 days, we'll hire a new commander-in-chief. This may be the most important election ever, and let's not forget about the Supreme Court. So we chose that as our tweet of the day. We'll track her down and give her her prize. So I just wanted to mention that also. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, our final speaker, you know well. He is the star of the mega hit television series Duck Dynasty. Yeah, he is also featured on the television show Buck Commander, a hunting program on the Outdoor Channel. As many of you know, he was the subject of controversy after a 2013 interview he did with GQ magazine, where he had the audacity to speak his biblical views about the practice of homosexuality. As a result, A&E suspended him from the show. Now, many celebrities would be tripping over the furniture to get to some sort of therapy program or get to a microphone to apologize profusely about his core values, but not this man. He stood firm in his convictions, and after just 9 days, A&E lifted the suspension and reinstated him back to the show. Hello. And immediately following his speech tonight, we'll be showing his new film, Torch Bearer. You'll want to stay for that if you can. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Duck Commander, Phil Robertson.
And big the tree will be seen only as obscene, and the ones who run this land help the poor and common man. This is our country.
Now, if y'all are wondering what wing of the Republican Party that I'm representing, I'll be with the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Yeah, that TV bunch out of New York City dropped the axe on me. But you know what? They might have fired me for 9 days, but God didn't. So I usually don't have any notes. The documentary you will see if you wait around. You should wait. I know it's late, but you should wait to see it. I must remind you, it's a brutal film. You say, we should wait around, and you've already told us that it will be a brutal film. The reason it's brutal is the premise of the documentary is when you allow men to determine for you what is right, what is wrong, you allow men to determine what is good and what is evil. When you allow men to determine for you how much your life is worth, how much any life is worth, you turn those things over to humans instead of vetting everything through this Bible. It never turns out well, ever. You want examples? What you'll see, the idolatrous Greeks, all those false gods, they had to erect the things, dig a hole, get a bunch of slaves, dump the thing in there. It's got a face on the top of it. This is this God. Right over there, they'd haul that over there. They'd dump that one in the ground. The only way the thing could ever move is you'd have to get up there with a bunch of more slaves, dig it up, and haul it off. You're like, and they bowed down to those things? You'll see the Apostle Paul's speech on Mars Hill. I delivered it, standing up on top of that hill, and when I looked down, among all those rocks on Mars Hill in Greece, I saw a little square block that marked the spot where the Apostle Paul stood, my brother, 2,000 years before me. When I saw that, I delivered the speech, and people from all over the world were visiting Mars Hill, the Acropolis, and all those, the Temple of Diana over there, all those ruins. It's all falling in, you know. Zeus is like this now on the ground. That's old Zeus. What's left of him? It's a picture of what happens when you allow men to determine your rights instead of God. Thomas Jefferson had it right. Our rights come from God. You allow men to step in and decide for you what your rights are going to be. Look out, because the slaughter's fixing to take place. Look at the Nazis. There was no Jesus with the Nazis, correct? What were they famous for? In a word, murder, right? Then the Shintoists came, unprovoked by us, no Jesus people among them, zero, none, nothing. Hirohito to them, their emperor, he was God. You say, how did that turn out for them? Look how many lives we lost. I've got uncles. My uncle, the one I'm named after, died when he took 5 steps on one of those beaches over there. A lot of blood spilled. You say, murder. That's what they started. That's 2. It's about 80 years of history. Then the communists came. Any Jesus with them? How many people did Stalin kill? How much murder? Add the Nazis, the Shintoists, the communists. You say, I see a pattern developing here. And then this latest crop, these Islamic fundamentalists. Any Jesus with them? What are they famous for? I see a definite pattern. That's what the documentary's about. Here's what you get when you do not think it worthwhile to retain the knowledge of God. Romans chapter 1, since they did not think it worthy to retain the knowledge of God, he gave them over to a reprobate or depraved mind to do what ought not to be done. They've become filled with every kind of wickedness, evil, greed, and depravity. I'm quoting. You say, they are full of murder. It's always there. Envy, strife, malice, deceit. They are slanderers, gossips, God haters, insolent, arrogant, boastful. They invent ways of doing evil. They disobey their parents. They are heartless. They are senseless. They're faithless. They're ruthless. You say, my goodness, was that the way it was in the Roman Empire? It sounds like us. Don't forget God. Well, I would vote for old Trump, some say. 10% of the Republican Party. I'd vote for him if he were as conservative as I am. I've given you about a 5-minute warm-up since I've been standing here. If my litmus test said, well, I'm not voting for anybody, Phil Robertson not vote for anyone that's not as conservative as he is, well, I would end up not voting for anyone but me. I'm the most conservative dude I know. You're like, huh? I vet everything through this Bible. Everything. You're like, whoo, whoo, whoo. I told the Nebraska delegation, they said, Phil, I'm doing every 15 or 20 minutes, I'm standing in front of the camera. The left-wingers, they're after me, trying to rope-a-dope me. So I'm watching them close, you know, when they're interviewing me. You know, did you know that Hollywood hates you? I said, oh, surely not me. So they're trying to get at me, you know. So I'm trying to be tactful, but quick on my feet. You got to watch them. So look. So I'm going from that one, then I'm over to this one, and this one, and this one. So we walk in, and I said, where are we? He said, well, you're at the Nebraska delegation. The governor of Nebraska is standing there, you know. I'll walk in. Mr. Robertson, could you say a few words to the people at the National Republican Convention? I said, well, yeah, I'll say a few words to these corn huskers. It's good to meet you, Governor. One of the things I told him, why don't we just try out of the top 10, just a couple of them? Let's get together with the atheists and everybody, and let's just try 2 things God said. Let's try it for a year and see how it works. Just try it. Let's don't murder each other anymore, and let's don't steal from one another. Do you think we'd be better off if we just kept a couple of them? What do you think? So I heard somebody in the audience in Nebraska, I said, would we be better off if we didn't murder each other, if we didn't steal from one another, just a couple of them, to see if it would work? They said, absolutely it would work. My compadres, my bodyguards, can you believe it? I actually have to have bodyguards. Because when I travel, when I'm at my house, no bodyguards needed. You talk about armed. Woo! But when I travel, all the laws we have again, yeah, I understand. Well, Donald Trump sticks his foot in his mouth too much. That's why I'm not voting for him. Really? First of all, read the Old Testament and see how many different people God worked through to accomplish his purpose. A lot of them. Give him time. Better a man who sticks his foot in his mouth every once in a while. I've done it myself. I know none of you have, but possible you might have at some point. Better a man who sticks his foot in his mouth every once in a while than a woman who pours out lies. So what I stand on is simple. You say, Phil, in a nutshell, you're down there under lock and key. I mean, you're well protected where you are. You're hard to get to. And even if you got there, don't do things like walk up in my yard after dark, scratch on the window. Don't do any of that. You say, so what do you and Miss Kay do? What do you actually do? Are y'all listening? We work with drug addicts. We work with girls, women who prostitute themselves. If you heard the stories that we sit down and listen to every day, every other day, yesterday, this girl, life of immorality, molested young. We deal with the ones who perform unnatural sex acts, we convert them. We bring them to Jesus. We love them. Miss Kay, when I called her this morning, she is the mother hen over about 40 women. Those women, they have some of the most horrific stories that you ever could hear. Just never got a break. I mean, used, abused. We're there to help the ones who just get out of prison, the ones who are fixing to go to prison, the ones who are in prison. You say, y'all are there. You help them. You try to get them on their feet. Look, they show up. This young lady, beautiful little girl, she came in. I said, what is your problem, honey? What's your story? She said, I'm a heroin addict, Mr. Robertson. I said, sit down there. I said, where you come from? She said, Washington State. I said, how'd you get here? She said, I came by bus. I had just enough money for a bus ticket. Can you help me? I said, yes, ma'am, we can help you. That was about 3 months ago. Now she has a job placement type job that helps others, so we refer other women and men who are down and out. Our culture is just churning out. They come to us. Our culture is just churning out this mass of humanity. Mostly they get high, they get drunk, and they get laid a lot. And we're trying to get them to turn to God so they can have finally peace of mind. Do you get it? That's what we do. So when someone says, what I want y'all to remember is, I stand on this. It's 2016. You agree? Was last year 2015, or am I dreaming? You say, this 2015. What was the year before that, 2014? Walk it back, and you're going to get to year 1. Something rather large must have happened because our calendar is based on what happened. Right? That's the year God became flesh. The creator of the cosmos becomes a human being. I think it's too wild a story to dream up. Have you ever read what Moses said in Genesis? Let me get this right. Before the wheel was invented, we got a guy, what's he doing? Sitting under a tree? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth was void, full of darkness, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the... You're talking about an imagination. What, is he just a raving lunatic made out of water, separated water from water, let dry ground appear? Here comes all the vegetation and the moon and the stars and the sun. You're like, this old guy was a dreamer. I don't think you could dream it up. You're like, no way they dreamed that up. My college professors told me that salt water made us. And I'm sitting there at about 18 and I'm thinking, get out of here. So I was dumb enough to say, well, where'd the salt water come from? Because there's a lot of it. Well, we think comets, maybe asteroids hauled it in here. I'm like, you really believe that? They landed on one not long ago to check it out and see if there's any water on it. Any water on one of them? No water there. They're like, well, I don't guess that brought them in. By the way, that's a lot of water to be hauled from comets and asteroids. How did it ever rain if you didn't have the oceans to begin with? By the way, Moses is writing about the seas, ocean seas. You're like, what, a world traveler? You say, he didn't even have a wheel to travel on. You think he was going around on the Atlantic Ocean looking at the seas saying, yeah, this is how he did it. I guarantee you he didn't cover 30 miles in his life. You say, how did he know all those things? So God becomes flesh. Quite a story. Why? You're not going to be able to get your hands on someone who speaks a cosmos into existence. You're not going to be able to touch him unless he allows you to. Therefore, he becomes flesh. That's one. Two is, he showed us all what we ought to be. Never made a mistake. Look what the human race did to him. He never made a mistake. God made him who had no sin to be sin for us, so that in him we might become the righteousness of God. He, the one who became flesh and died on a cross, he's our perfection. He's our holiness. He's our redemption. What we could never do. What are you going to do? Remove your own sin? You say, well, Phil, are you rich and famous? Well, yeah. But you know what, folks? Do you think that's going to help me when it comes to my sin? All the money I ever make is not going to be able to remove my sin, right? You say, what about fame? Fame's not going to raise me from the dead either. First things first, I love my country, but I love God a lot more. You know why? America can't remove your sin or mine, and America can't raise you from the dead, right? But this Jesus can. You say, first things first. That's the way I operate. Are you that conservative? Maybe you'll get there. In a 3-day period, you say, what's that thing right there on that? A saw cutting brush this morning with in a duck blind. In the morning, duck season opens at 6 a.m. You say, well, it's too bad for you because you're sitting up here in Washington, D.C. You'll never make it. Oh, I'm going to make it. We leaving here about 12 on a plane, and you say, you're going to roll into Louisiana about 4. You're going to be there with your shotgun standing next to all your brothers and all your sons. That's where I'll be. Old Si will be there, claiming every duck that falls. God becomes flesh, takes away our sin. 3 days later, you have a human body that's energized and standing back up on the earth. Folks, I'm 70. I've read the Hindu religion and the Islamic religion and the Shintoist religion and the Buddhist religion. I've read them all. You say, anything come close to this? Not even close. Now look, if you're an atheist, do you have a better idea on how you can escape the grave than the resurrection of Jesus Christ? It's the only way I know of any of us are ever going to escape. If there is no God, folks, we're never coming out of the ground, ever. Unless you have some information I don't have. Well, get up and state your case. What are you going to do about your funeral and the grave you're going into? I'm trying to get America to see that God has done it all for us in a 3-day period. Removed all our sin, guaranteed we can be raised from the dead. I'm fired up about it. You say, Phil, were you a low-down heathen at one time? For 28 years, I had never even heard what I just told y'all. Never heard it. When I heard it, I'm like, whoa, ho, ho. There's a lot more to that than I thought. You say, what happened to Jesus? He went back into heaven, sat down. You say, why? The blood that removes all your past sins, it's there 24/7, constantly cleansing you of any sin you will ever commit while you're on the earth. You're like, all my past sins removed, bingo. No future one counted against me, bingo. You say, what am I to do? You're to repent. When's the last time you heard someone in the news media say a word about sin or repent. You never hear it. And I'm looking to the right and left, and I'm thinking, we're one of the most lawless places on the face of the earth. But no one ever talks about sin. Everyone who sins breaks the law. In fact, sin is lawlessness. We forgot God as a nation. They ran him out of Hollywood. They ran him out of the news media, mainstream news media. He's not there. They ran him out of our education system. A fifth grader can't even thank God for the food she's fixing to eat. Can't do that. Nope. They ran him out of Washington, D.C. You're like, we've run him out. Got to bring him back. By the way, when old Phil here met Mr. Trump earlier, he said, what did old Phil do? Old Rob here had written down an arrow coming down out of heaven, and he had written above it, I wrote this down there on the riverbank. I wrote down there 1 A.D., arrow coming out of heaven. I had a cross there. I wrote it. I didn't say a word. I just wrote it. 1 A.D., arrow, God becoming flesh. I drew a cross where the blood was shed for our sin, and I put a tomb where they put him and where you're going, and I had an arrow coming out of that tomb. He beat it. He beat death. You say, did you show Mr. Trump that? What do you think? You better believe I showed him that. And you know what I said? I said, Donald, don't miss this. I said, we need God on our side. I was just trying to give him some encouraging words. And I also told him, I said, if you really want to see something wild, I said, film it, Donald. Film me baptizing you. I said, the left-wingers will literally go crazy. And I said, and the evangelicals will swarm you like a mighty throng. Right? Because then we would know we have God on our side. So I'm only saying that right now in front of you because I know it will get to Donald Trump. I'm hoping he will do that. So you say you did your job, didn't you? You got to remember, God calls people for different tasks, ladies and gentlemen. You say, your task, so are you some kind of preacher? Do I look like a preacher? I'm not near slick enough for a preacher. By the way, you know I'm not a preacher. You know why? I'm not passing the hat. I'm already rich. So money is not what I need out of you. You say, oh, you have all that. Yeah. I'm just trying to help America go back to her roots. The great orator Patrick Henry said, it cannot be said too strongly or too often that this great nation was not founded by religionists, but by Christians. And then he said, in fact, this nation was founded on the gospel of Jesus Christ. One of your founding fathers, Patrick Henry, said that. Well, you just heard what he was talking about. I just gave you the gospel and the response. Repent, go to the river, let someone baptize you. You're added to the kingdom and you'll get off planet Earth alive. I don't see the downside of loving God and loving each other. Do y'all? Let's give that a whirl for a while. I love you.